The Pittsburgh Steelers delivered the kind of gritty, grinded-out performance that fans in the AFC North have come to expect, and this time, they came out on top. Beating the Cleveland Browns by a score of 23-0, the Steelers showed real signs of progress, not just on the scoreboard, but in how they handled one of the toughest defenses in all of football. And that's what really matters this early in the season. It's not about getting lost in results or standings. Real hope, the kind that can carry a team into December and beyond, comes from real performance. And on that front, this Steelers team gave fans plenty to believe in. The Browns came into this game as a bit of a mystery for anyone just looking at the win-loss column. But what those numbers don't tell you is how dangerous that Cleveland defense truly is. That's a group that can beat you up, wear you down, and make you question why you even showed up on Sunday. Yet the Steelers' offense stood their ground, showed poise, and matched that physicality snap for snap. There was nothing pretty about it, and there didn't need to be. This was the kind of dirty work win that builds real identity. The first thing that stood out? The offensive line. This group has taken its fair share of criticism over the past year, and rightly so. But what we saw against the Browns was a unit that held its own against a ferocious pass rush and gave the offense a chance to function. No sacks allowed, no takeaways, and absolutely nothing from the so-called game wreckers on the Cleveland side. Even Myles Garrett. Yes, that Myles Garrett was held to just 2 assisted tackles. That's no small feat. The Steelers weren't just chipping him. They were locking him down with Broderick Jones and Isaac Sumalo holding their own. And when a guy like Spencer Anderson is out there for 17 snaps, continuing what he started overseas, you start to see the bigger picture. The Steelers are growing. Not exploding, not dominating, but progressing in a way that matters. Darnell Washington, who'd been primarily used as a 6th lineman in earlier games, was freed up in this one. The training wheels are off. He was out running routes, creating mismatches, and contributing in the pass game instead of just being stapled to the end of the line. And guess what? The offense still held up. That tells you the foundation is solid. It wasn't perfect, but it was good enough to control the line of scrimmage, give the quarterback time, and open up the rest of the playbook. Running the ball was another major emphasis coming into this one, and it had to be. Even Mike Tomlin acknowledged it was the top priority. Why? Because against a defense like Cleveland's, if you don't establish the run early, they'll pin their ears back and make your quarterback's life miserable. But the Steelers didn't let that happen. They stuck with the run. Jaylen Warren led the charge with 52 yards. Kenny Gainwell added 22. And Caleb Johnson chipped in with a handful of hard-nosed runs, including a beautiful 9-yard first down that extended a critical drive. That commitment to the ground game opened things up downfield, gave the offense balance, and kept the Browns guessing. Then there's the deep passing game, something we've barely seen from this team in recent weeks. But it was on full display here. Not just checkdowns, not just short slants over the middle, but real, vertical, aggressive throws that actually made the Browns' secondary respect the deep ball. DK Metcalf, who was arguably the best player on the field for the Steelers, hauled in 4 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown. That's the kind of production that changes the dynamic of a game. When you've got that deep threat working, suddenly the safeties back off, the linebackers hesitate, and you're tight and start finding space. It all worked in tandem. More tight ends got involved. The offense diversified. And for once, it really did feel like the Steelers were working off a list of goals. Check, check, check. Run the ball. Protect the quarterback. Hit a few deep shots. Win time of possession. Minimize mistakes. And they did it all against a defense that had been terrorizing quarterbacks for weeks. Defensively, the Steelers looked faster, sharper, and more complete than they have in a long time. And that's not just about getting guys back on the field, though that certainly helps. For at least 2 quarters, they had all the key personnel out there. Darius Slay, Joey Porter, Brandon Eccles. They were all in the mix until a few minor injuries forced some rotations. But overall, the cohesion was there. More importantly, the energy was there. This defense didn't just swarm, they suffocated. One guy would close in on a tackle, and suddenly 2 more were there to finish it off. That kind of pursuit isn't just about athleticism, it's about buy-in. It's about playing with urgency. And it was everywhere. What made it even more fun to watch was how unpredictable they became. Gone were the stale, predictable zone looks. Instead, we saw blitzes from all over the field, including some exotic schemes that would have made Brian Flores proud. Jalen Ramsey recorded 2 sacks, including one off a delayed blitz that completely fooled the Browns' protection. That's coaching. That's preparation. That's execution. By the end of the game, the Steelers' defense had racked up 6 sacks, 16 quarterback hits, and 8 passes defensed. That stat line alone should have translated into a couple of interceptions, and honestly, they left a few on the field. But the pressure was relentless. The Browns' rookie quarterback had no time, no rhythm, and no real answer. And that's how you dominate a game without even needing a pick. You hit them, you rush them, you frustrate them, and eventually you break them. Now, the record sits at 4 wins and 1 loss. And if things go right on Thursday night in Cincinnati, they'll be 5-1. That puts the rest of the AFC North in a tough spot, especially considering no other team in the division has managed a win in over 3 weeks. But again, standings aren't the story here. The real story is how the Steelers are evolving. They're getting better, cleaner, smarter, and more physical. They're building an identity, not one based on hype, but one grounded in execution. You can't overlook the coaching staff in all this either. It's easy to point fingers when things go wrong, and fans have done plenty of that, especially after those early season struggles. But when a team starts to turn a corner, that credit has to go both ways. Mike Tomlin has been more open to making changes. Arthur Smith is finding better rhythm in his play calling. Terrell Austin is dialing up creative looks on defense. There's a sense of cohesion that hasn't been there in a while, and it's showing on the field. This wasn't just a win, it was a statement. A win against a divisional rival, yes, but more importantly, a win against a defense that's built to break your will. And the Steelers didn't flinch. They didn't back down. They leaned into the physicality, took the punches, and delivered a few of their own. That's what makes a team dangerous in January. Not the flashy wins, not the stat-padding blowouts, but the kind of grown-man victories where you control the trenches and come out stronger than when you walked in. And look, there's still room to grow. The offensive line can get even better. The pass game can be more consistent. The defense can finish those near interceptions. But for a mid-October battle in the AFC North, this was about as solid a performance as you could hope for. It was the kind of game that tells you the arrow is pointing up, that tells you the work is paying off, and that maybe, just maybe, this team is building towards something real. One of the most underrated elements in the Steelers' win wasn't just what they did right. It was how consistent they were in doing it. That level of consistency, especially against a defense like Cleveland's, is something this team hasn't always shown. The offense, for example, didn't just have a couple of explosive plays and then go cold. They moved the ball steadily, controlled the tempo, and stayed within themselves. It wasn't flashy, but it was efficient. They totaled 335 yards, averaged 5.8 yards per play, and didn't turn a ball over once. No fumbles, no interceptions, no panic decisions. That kind of mistake-free football is what wins tough divisional matchups. They also picked up 19 first downs, proof that they weren't relying on gimmicks or sudden strikes, but rather methodical, grinded-out drives that wore the Browns down. Time of possession ended with a 3-minute edge in favor of Pittsburgh, and that's crucial when your defense is built around pressure. The longer you keep them fresh on the sideline, the more destructive they become when they're back on the field. And that plan worked to perfection. Even when the Steelers were tackled for loss, it wasn't the kind of back-breaking moments that kill momentum. In fact, 2 of those 5 tackles for loss came during kneel downs to end the game. So, realistically, the Browns' defense only forced 3 actual negative plays in 60 minutes of football. That tells you just how well this offensive line held up and how balanced the play calling was. Let's talk about that for a second, because if we're going to criticize the coaching staff when things go wrong, we have to give credit when it's due. The play calling on both sides of the ball was significantly improved. Offensively, the Steelers finally found a rhythm. They mixed in the run game to keep the Browns honest, took timely shots downfield, and stayed ahead of the chains more often than not. They didn't overthink it. They didn't try to reinvent the wheel. They just played smart, physical football and let their players go make plays. And that's exactly what you need in games like this. Defensively, Terrell Austin and the rest of the coaching staff put together a game plan that completely disrupted Cleveland's offensive flow. The blitz packages weren't just creative, they were unpredictable. You saw different looks on third downs, different disguises pre-snap, and even some zone blitzes that hadn't been seen much this year. They turned up the pressure in ways that made it nearly impossible for the Browns' rookie quarterback to settle in. By the end of the game, he looked rattled, unsure, and overwhelmed. And that's not by accident. That's coaching. Now, back to the defense for a moment, because it really was the backbone of this win. 6 sacks, 16 quarterback hits, 8 passes defensed. That's an elite stat line, especially against a team that came in determined to run the ball and play safe. And while the interception column stayed at 0, the defense absolutely had their hands on a few. By one count, there were at least 5 legitimate chances for picks. But even without the takeaways, the disruption they caused was more than enough. They dominated the line of scrimmage, shut down the run, and turned every dropback into a potential disaster for Cleveland. It also needs to be said that this wasn't just a few stars carrying the load. This was a team effort. The defensive line got penetration. The linebackers filled gaps and closed lanes. The secondary blanketed receivers and broke up passes. Everyone played fast, physical, and connected. That's what this defense was supposed to look like all along. And now that they're healthier and more confident, it's starting to show. And then there's the intangibles, the stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. The energy, the swagger, the communication. You could feel it from the sideline, from the huddle, from the way guys celebrated after a stop. This wasn't just a defense trying to survive. This was a group that came to dominate. They played with pride, with edge, and with the kind of urgency you only see when a team is starting to believe in what they're building. It also helped that the Steelers didn't beat themselves. That might sound simple, but it's huge. No dumb penalties, no clock mismanagement, no mental lapses in key moments. That speaks to a team that's growing, not just physically, but mentally. And when you combine talent with discipline, that's when things start to click. For the fans, this game might not have been a shootout or a highlight reel kind of win, but it was something far more valuable. It was a statement that this team can win the hard way, that they can line up against one of the nastiest defenses in the league and not blink, that they're willing to get in the mud, throw some punches, and grind out a result. And in this division, that's the only way to survive. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The NFL world is buzzing this week after an eyebrow-raising move that has fans and analysts alike whispering in disbelief. Jordan MAILATA, the towering human wall, who has dominated at left tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles, is reportedly on the move, heading to Pittsburgh. While nothing is official yet, sources close to the situation suggest that the Steelers are pulling out all stops to bring MAILATA into their offensive line, a move that could instantly elevate the unit to an elite status. MAILATA, known for his incredible combination of size, agility, and sheer instinct on the field, has long been a cornerstone of Philly's offensive front. Drafted in 2018, the Australian-born tackle quickly shed the label of project and transformed into a game-changing force. His ability to neutralize elite pass rushers while opening lanes for the running game has made him a fan favorite, and the thought of him suiting up for a division rival has already sparked heated debates across social media. Rumors suggest the deal could involve a significant contract and potentially some draft picks, though the details remain murky. The Steelers, notorious for their physical and disciplined style in the trenches, could be looking at MAILATA as the missing piece to protect their quarterback and dominate the AFC North. The chatter is that this is more than just a signing. It's a statement. Pittsburgh is signaling that it intends to play at an entirely new level on offense, and bringing in a player of MAILATA's caliber could make that vision a reality. Insiders also hint at MAILATA's personal excitement. Sources say the tackle is intrigued by the idea of leading a new line, testing himself against fresh competition, and perhaps chasing a Super Bowl in a new city. Of course, Eagles fans are already bracing for heartbreak, knowing that losing such a foundational player could shake the team's strategy to its core. While the league waits for confirmation, speculation is running wild. Could MAILATA's move trigger a domino effect in the AFC? Would other teams look to reinforce their lines to keep pace? One thing is certain. If this rumor is true, the NFL just got a lot more interesting, and Pittsburgh's defensive line just became the talk of the league. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.